tired, so tired, overtired.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the lately sporadic Overtired podcast. Jeff is out this week. I'm Brett Terpstra. I am here with Christina Warren. Christina, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm tired because, and I'm just getting started. This weekend is going to be so busy. But no, I'm tired because I've had kind of like a crazy last week or so, and it's just going to get busier. But I'm good. How about you?
I also am tired. I ran out of my sleep meds one night, and then I got them and slept really well the next night. And then last night, even with the sleep meds, after 2 a.m., I was up like every half an hour. So I'm dragging. And I also had a crazy work week. Crazy for me, probably not as crazy as yours, but I did this project before I left on vacation. I went to Asheville. We haven't talked since then, but have we?
No.
No. Um, I worked really hard to get 2 projects in the can before I left on vacation, and then made the mistake of checking Slack while on
Oh
vacation,
no.
and found out that both of the projects I had completed required revisions for asinine reasons. That I started to argue in Slack halfway through my vacation. And then I was like, dude, you're totally harshing my buzz here. So I'll talk to you when I get home. And then I saw Victor, and Victor kind of talked me down, and I got back, and like, it was no big deal. But then yesterday I get this frantic Slack message from someone I had never heard of, who wanted to know who greenlit the demo video that I published, because that entire project apparently was confidential. And like, I worked directly with the team, and the team didn't know their project was confidential. They were as shocked as I was. So there is some kind of failure of communication
Yeah,
here.
and a failure, I should add, that is in no way yours.
I just followed orders. They
That's what I'm
haven't been
saying.
saying.
That's what I'm saying. You had zero problem with that.
So I got together all the stakeholders. I said, you guys sort this out. It's Friday afternoon. I'm out. Have fun.
Yeah. No, sounds fair. Sounds fair. Um, we'll talk more in depth off mic, but I'm actually going to be talking to a couple of Oracle people at Microsoft Build, but I don't know if you know any of them or not. But
We'll find out.
we'll find out. You probably
Um,
don't, because it's a big company, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I meet new people every day. Um, so I think we've kind of started the mental health.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds good. So how? But let's go more into that. You can take it away. Like how was Asheville? How's
Oh,
life?
yeah, Asheville was awesome. It was my second time going there, and I loved it so much the first time. I had to go back again. Have you ever been?
I never have. But I've heard good things. I've heard it's like a good place.
There's Raleigh and there's Asheville, the only blue spots in what is otherwise a deep red state.
Yeah, I've been to Raleigh.
And yeah, Asheville is like, it's kind of hippie meets yuppie meets like just your average like West Coast liberal kind of sensibility. And like, you'll get into an Uber, and they'll ask you where you're from, and if you're from like a blue state, they'll be like, oh, you'll feel right at home here. And half the people there have relocated, so like, my accent didn't stick out at all. No one really questioned whether I was from Asheville or not. I had to tell them I was just visiting. But yeah, we did shopping, we hiked, we swam in waterfalls, we ate a lot of really good food. They have a ton of like vegan, gluten-free food for us. And there's this restaurant called Plant that it's a vegan restaurant. And honestly, it's the best vegan food I've ever had. I would take any meat eater there and just be like, enjoy. And it was half price bottle of wine night. So we got a bottle of red wine, drank half of it with dinner, And then they sent us home. They corked the bottle and gave us, I mean, we paid for it, but we got a pint of vegan ice cream. Went back to our tiny home, which was awesome. We Airbnb'd a tiny home and we sat and had a pint of ice cream and half a bottle of wine before going to bed in probably the most comfortable bed I've ever slept in. So overall, the vacation was pretty magical.
That's awesome.
Um, and then I came home and went right back into work, which I don't know. I was pretty refreshed. It's like the first vacation in a long time that actually felt refreshing instead of stressful. Um, Even though we drove from Minnesota to North Carolina, um, it and I did most of the driving, but I I'm a trooper. I can drive for hours. I don't want to, but I can. Anyhow, that's my update.
That's good. That's good. Well, I'm glad you had a good time. I want to hear more about this tiny home shit.
Oh yeah. It was in this guy's backyard. They built a tiny home that it had running water, it had electricity, it had Wi-Fi, it had like a great shower with great water pressure, super comfortable bed, but the whole thing was maybe like 80 square feet. Um, it had a decent sized refrigerator and a microwave and a toaster oven and a big sink and like just soup, like, all brand new, like all like recently built. Everything was in top notch shape. And I sent a link out. I posted pictures of it, and people who visit Asheville were like, I need to know where this is. So I can link it in the show notes too. If you're headed to Asheville, I highly recommend. And it was $80 a night.
Damn.
You know, you can't, it'll only hold two people,
Of course, but like
80
that's
bucks a
fine.
night. Yeah, that's like motel prices.
I was gonna say I don't
And
think I've ever in my life
yeah,
ever
it was
experienced that.
way underpriced for what it was. I would have expected it to be more like 250 a night.
Yeah, I would expect that
And
too. Yeah.
completely private. We met the owner one time in passing in his backyard, but otherwise it's like keypad entry, never see anybody, completely secluded in like the backyard is a forest and it's like surrounded by trees and it was so cool. It was awesome.
That's
It's
awesome.
worth going to Asheville just to stay in this tiny home.
Yeah, no, the tiny home movement is so interesting to me. I mean, like it doesn't negate like a lot many of the real problems, which are like, okay, well, where do you get space for a tiny home? But
Yeah.
like where do you get land for those things? But
Yeah. No, but yeah, I love the idea of creating a maximally livable space in a minimal area. And that is like I love it as an engineering problem. I don't want to live in one like permanently,
right,
but like for a couple nights, it's awesome. Yeah.
right. That's
So
cool.
how are you?
I'm pretty good. Like I said, I've been busy. So last week, so Microsoft Build is happening. It'll be Tuesday the 21st, the 22nd, the 23rd. So Wednesday the 22nd, and Thursday the 23rd. And so I'm involved in that this year. I'm not like as heavily involved as some years, but I am one of the hosts, and so I'm still doing by being not heavily involved. I think that only means I'm doing like 15 interviews instead of like 30. So, stuff has been coming in hot, and then there've been like parts of my day job and stuff too. And then I went out of town beforehand to Atlanta for Mother's Day, and I went to a concert in Portland this week, which in retrospect, not the best decision. Like, if I could do it all over again, as much as great of a time as I had at the concert and as great as it was to be in Portland for like a day and a half, I would not have gone out of town before all of this, just because I had a ton of meetings. I was like,
Yeah.
I took a meeting like on an airplane, like as we were boarding, right? Like it was one of those things. They were like, "Oh, you have to go." I'm like, "No, no, no, no. I'm gonna be completely that asshole who sits in the front of the plane and is on the phone while everyone is boarding." But it was a small commuter jet because it was for like an hour-long flight. So, but it was a really busy week, and then the weekend is going to be really busy. Like, we're recording this on a Saturday. I have an appointment this afternoon to get my eyebrows waxed, and then my call time tomorrow is like 8 a.m. for rehearsals and pre-records. And then it's similar on Monday. So it's like 8 to 6 Sunday and Monday. And then my call time Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is 6 a.m. and it will go until like 6
Jesus.
p.m. So yeah, so it's going to be like a long week. So
I usually say it sarcastically, but that is why you get paid the big bucks.
I don't know
Like
about that.
usually if I say that to someone, it's with this knowing smile,
Right.
like I know they don't get paid the big bucks. But yeah, you deserve what you get.
I mean, I get the moderately by tech standards bucks, right? Yeah. No, this is definitely one of those weeks where I'm like, yeah, I'm doing a lot. Like yesterday, I was trying to manage 5 million different things, and I was like, I'm very sorry. I was like, things are coming in hot on this, and then people were like, oh yeah, well, what are you doing with build? And then I was like telling them a little bit of my schedule, just like I did with you. I'm like, yeah, so we got like 2, all day like pre-record and rehearsal days, and then like my call time's at 6 a.m. for 3 days, and it's going to be there all day and all night. Oh, and I'll have community events at night too. Like, let's not forget about that.
Mhm.
And they were like, and I haven't even told that to people. I've just figured that the 6 a.m. call time was enough to kind of get it. But no, I'll have evening events as well. So yes, this is one of those weeks
So
where I'm like,
how are you going to take care of yourself? Like what do you do to make it possible to get through that many long days?
I mean, you just do it and then you collapse after.
Do you drink in the evenings?
No, usually not.
Okay.
Usually not.
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't either. That would
If
be
I were 10 years younger, if I were actually 29, sure. But no, at my actual age, no, I don't drink. Just because you can't. Like, at least I
Yeah.
can't. Like, yeah.
No, not when you have to get up at 6 a.m. and be on.
And be
It's
on.
not like you just have to show up.
Exactly. No.
Like you got to be on.
No, you got to be on. You have to look good, right? Like, yeah, you got to be, energetic and doing all those things. And yeah, the only thing I'm weirdly anxious about at this point, this matters to no one, but I'll just say it anyway because fuck it. I refuse to do what is required on my personal cell phone to be able to have access to Microsoft's like
Same.
chat stuff.
Same, but with Oracle for me.
Right. Because GitHub doesn't make us put any sort of MDM on our phones. And so I have no problem getting Slack or email or Zoom or basically anything. Like I can use a YubiKey if I need to for certain things, but now actually we can use passkeys with Okta as basically a YubiKey. So like there's nothing, I mean, there are like a handful of resources that require that I actually be on like a GitHub owned and operated machine. And in that case, I wouldn't be able to access it on a phone anyway, because we don't have phone management stuff. But Microsoft is different. And when I worked at Microsoft, it was one thing for me to like put the Intune stuff on my phone, because that way I could access email and Teams and whatnot. And it was a trade-off. And for the most part, it was fine, because what they have access to and what they can see, at least on the iPhone, is less than what they can on Android. And like, I didn't care. But then they started putting this antivirus Windows Defender stuff on it.
Yep.
And that impacts your battery life in a not insignificant way. And the thing is that if it's part of my job and part of my day thing, fine, I can consider the trade-off, right? But this isn't part of my job and my day-to-day. Like, I don't have to use their tools.
Yeah.
Except for like 1 or 2 weeks out of the year for things like this. Because this is like, I know that they are going to be sending updates to Teams that I'm not going to be able to see. And like, as much as I would like for them to just be like, just text me, I also am recognizing that that's probably not going to be a thing. And so I'm like half considering in tuning my phone for the week, only because I broke my phone last Saturday when I was getting my haircut, or maybe it was last Friday. And I had to order like an express replacement, and it arrived on Wednesday. So I got it Thursday. So I have like 10 days to send it back to them. So what I'm thinking is that I can take my broken phone, and what broke, by the way, was just like the back glass and the front glass a little bit. And it wasn't that bad, but I didn't have time to go to an Apple store and pay them $50 to deal with it. So I was just like, did the pay them $100 and they'll mail me a refurb but new phone thing. This is the second time now that I've broken my iPhone 15 Pro Max since I got it in September. So great for me. You would think, Christina, just buy a case. Well, I did buy a case, but I hated the case. And so here we are. Anyway, I'm thinking, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I'm like, maybe I just Intune my phone that I know I'm going to wipe anyway, and then just set up the new phone as a new phone and don't bother with any of the, transfer over.
I haven't. So Oracle has MDM stuff, and they will pay for my phone if I, run it as if it's Oracle property.
Right.
Like they would pay my cell bill and everything.
Right.
And if I saw a need for it, I would take them up on that and just have a separate number for work. But like I can run Outlook on my phone, no problem getting my emails. I can use Zoom with SSO on my phone, no problem getting meetings. And my like Apple Calendar works with their Office 365 implementation of scheduling software. So I have no reason to let Oracle own my phone. Does Microsoft, will they pay? Can you just get a second phone for this 2 weeks out of the year?
No, unfortunately, that's the thing, right? Like, so GitHub will pay as part of some of our benefits. Like, I can have my phone bill expensed, and even my cell phone is part of that, right? So, like, if you do like the monthly, fee, like $50 a month or whatever, like to every 2 years or whatever, or if you are part of the Apple upgrade program, like every year you can get a new phone, right? Like, I can expense that, which is great, but that's like a benefit. But I could also use that for money for other things too. So I guess technically I could get a second phone and just have that paid for as my GetUp phone, and then have my personal phone that I'm not, expensing anything on, and then use that for the 2 months out of the year or 2 weeks out of the year. I guess I could do that. I do have an iPhone 12 Pro Max that's still around. My thought has actually been for a while has been to use that as like my, Microsoft Teams phone if I need it, and also use it as a webcam replacement instead of using the studio displays garbage fucking camera. Which I still have people on Mastodon and Threads, but mostly Threads, who will like argue with me about that. And I'm like, if you're happy with a really shitty camera that's like worse than like an iPad camera in a $1,500, $1,600 display, that's great. I'm happy for you. However, most of us who spend $1,600 on a display are also the sorts of assholes who will then spend more money on a better webcam because the webcam that comes with it is hot garbage. And if and if you want to live in delusional town and think that that it's not, happy for you, love that for you. However, most of us who are like dumb enough to spend this much money on this type of display because it's the only display we can use, because it is it is overpriced and it is not worth the money, except it is. Like, there's no alternative. So I just spend more. Anyway, I've been thinking about using that phone also as like a webcam, because it's now, 3 years out of date, and it'll be almost 4 years out of date, but it's still perfectly, serviceable. So I don't know.
Can I admit, I have never upgraded from my 12 Pro Max. It is, I've never broken it. It has never been slow. The battery life 3 years, 4 years later is still solid. Like most of the iPhones I've had after a few years, like the battery life, you have to start charging it twice a day. You have to like charge midday, and that sucks. That's why I usually upgrade. This one, it runs for a day and a half about before it needs a charge. Unless I'm playing a lot of Super Monsters Ate My Condo, which I think I mentioned last time, but has just come out for Apple Arcade, and I'm way back into it. But anyway, yeah, I still run a 12 Pro Max, and I think every once in a while about going for a 15, but I love this phone. It's completely paid off, and I've never cracked it. There's no chips on it. I just don't have a reason to.
Yeah.
My case is smashed to hell. I'm gonna hold this up so you can see, but like The case is falling apart from all the times it's protected my phone. It's not in great shape. I should get a new case if I'm not going to get a new phone. And that's what happens is I'm like, I should order a new case. Then I'm like, I should just go down to the Verizon store and just finally get a new phone and then get a case for that. But I have not. Couple questions. First of all, how much do you love passkeys?
I love passkeys. They're the greatest thing in the whole
Oh my
world.
God. Like when I used to be, because I do the GitHub organization management for my organization
Yep.
for the entire DevRel part of Oracle. And I used to have to, every time you can be logged in, but if you want to change the collaborators on a repo, it'll ask you to do a 2FA login again. And it used to always be either I had to pull up the GitHub mobile app and punch in the 2-digit code, or I'd have to get a text message and punch in a 2FA code. And on my Mac, that's a pain in the ass.
Yes.
And now I have passkeys and I can always just click the use passkey and then unlock one password,
Yes.
click a button, done.
No, that's
It's so much
no,
faster. I use it for Google, GitHub, my health insurance lets me use passkeys. Yeah, I think it's the future. It's so cool.
no, it's so great. And the way that 1Password does it is especially really
Uh-huh.
nice because, like, nothing against like the other implementations, but like it is sort of annoying on a desktop to have to hold up your phone and scan
Mhm.
a QR code and then
Oh
authenticate
yeah,
your
because
face.
1Password can actually do a screen capture.
Right.
Yeah,
So
no, that's
so with
awesome.
what 1Password is doing is that when you have a passkey that's saved in 1Password, if you're authenticated through 1Password, then the passkey authenticates in your browser. So I'm
Yeah,
not having to touch a YubiKey. I'm not having to authenticate with my, Face
yep,
ID with a QR code and whatnot. So for where it becomes really useful for me, and I think this would be useful for you as well, like you can use a keyboard that has a fingerprint sensor with your Mac Studio, but I don't know if you do because we're going to talk about keyboards in a little bit. Right, but you probably don't, right? But like I have an Intel iMac and I it has a T2 display or T2 chip, so it is like secure in that respect, but Apple refuses to let you use biometric login with it. Like I can't use one of their biometric keyboards on it, even though it's secure enough because
on 1Password.
no, with Mac OS.
Oh,
So,
wow.
this is why 1Password is great. So, like, one of the like, which means like, because for instance, you could use passkeys on like Safari or some other things like using fingerprint sensor without having to authenticate, like without
Mhm.
having to do the hold up your phone and scan the QR code and then face authenticate thing. But what I like about 1Password is that, and so this is one of the reasons why I have like a YubiKey like hanging off the back of my iMac, which no, it's not secure. No one's in my house. Fuck off. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like it's one of
right.
those things. I'm anticipating all of the well actually people who are never going to listen to this, but I hear you anyway, and I'm anticipating your objections, and I'm telling you I understand and I don't care. But what's great about 1Password is that because like I can, once I authenticate, to get into that, like all my passkeys work without me having to touch a YubiKey or log in with another biometric means, which on this current machine I don't have. Like Okta Desktop won't work on my iMac because it doesn't have a biometric sensor. So,
Mm,
but yet passkeys for Okta work through 1Password.
nice.
So yeah,
Have you ever used so you know how you can have authenticator apps like Google has one,
yes,
Oracle has one, Microsoft has
yeah,
one, and they give you your 6-digit
yes,
your 2FA code. Um, and I hate opening, like I'll be logging into like Oracle and it'll ask me to pull out my phone,
yes,
open the authenticator app, copy the or like memorize the code and then type it in,
right,
and that's a pain in the butt. Um if you can set up 1Password as your
Yep,
authenticator
it'll
app, which
autofill.
works most
It
places.
does.
Yeah, it just
It's
autofills
so great.
your 2FA code every time. So I've been trying to port everything over to that. It has not worked. Oracle, for some reason, demands that you use their app.
Yeah, Microsoft
Um,
does too for logging into Microsoft things. And they do it in a weird way where like they send me a thing where they're like, type in this code in this app. So it's not the same TOT. Now, like you can use the Microsoft Authenticator app as a TOTP provider.
mhm,
And for non-corporate accounts, you could actually, I'm pretty sure you could probably set up Google Authenticator or Authy or 1Password or
mhm.
another, TOTP provider to be the person who would provide you like that code, like for like your consumer Xbox account or consumer Outlook account or whatever. However, with I think it's now called Intra, which is such a fucking bad name, but it used to be Azure Active Directory, but now it's or Azure AD. Now it's Intra. But for that, you have to with an E. Yeah, it's a fucking weird name. I'm like Intra is really close to Encarta if you think about it, and and that's weird because I bet the people who came up with the name don't even remember Encarta, but I do because I was a child and I loved it. Anyway, Intra, that app like makes you log in with your face or some other way and then type in like the characters that it will show you on your
Yeah,
screen into the app.
that's the way GitHub, the GitHub mobile app authentication. If you choose to use, yeah, you have to load up GitHub mobile
Right.
and then type in the code, which is honestly easier to me than looking at my phone and copying
Yeah.
by hand a 6-digit
No,
code.
totally. I mean, and I agree with that. I actually prefer like tell me what to type into my phone rather than the other way around. I'm with you, but like
Yeah,
the best thing is just like autofill it for me.
yeah,
Or in the case
it's so
or in the
awesome.
case of GitHub, use a passkey, right? Because you can use passkeys
Yep,
with GitHub,
yep,
and then that's great. And what's great about 1Password, what I like so passkeys right now aren't fully like exportable, although apparently that's going to be coming to the spec. But I will save the same passkey or maybe two different passkeys but will both be authenticated the
mhm,
same way, both like in my phone's password manager folder as well as on 1Password. And
yep,
then I can select like on my phone like where do you want what passkey, where do you want to use it from, and I'm like great.
yep,
And the only annoying thing about like Google's passkey implementation is that it doesn't sync, so you have to have like a different passkey. Like you have like if you have a passkey set up for Chrome, for instance, you need to do that like on every device that you've got Chrome installed on.
yep.
And it's great. And for most people who don't have how many computers do I have? 4 or 5? Yeah, I'm literally counting. I'm literally counting in my head because I'm like, I mean, it's four that I use heavily, and then and like, and that doesn't count the iPhone and iPad, and then like I have a fifth. So yeah, technically a sixth, but yeah, but I don't do other stuff on that one. So yeah, most people don't have that situation, but like for someone
Yeah.
like me, I'm like, I appreciate how 1Password does it because I just need to install 1Password everywhere, and then my passkeys are working like on every platform.
All right, I'm gonna stick a sponsor read in here.
Hmm.
I'm actually pretty excited to have these guys as a sponsor. So, we're going to talk about AeroPress. AeroPress combines the best qualities of a few coffee brewing methods into one cup: a little French press, a little pour over, and a little espresso all in one cup. It's the best cup of classic coffee you'll ever drink. AeroPress is incredibly versatile, giving you full control over all brewing variables like temperature, time, grind size. So, unlike other brewers, you can make countless recipes. I have my own favorites, but I love to experiment and get different cups of coffee from the same beans. And it's the fastest single cup coffee maker out there. 2 minutes to brew and clean. I have a Zojirushi water heater, so I can have boiling water in about a minute, and have my cup of coffee 2 minutes later. AeroPress just released a new set of clear colors: blue, green, purple, red, and more, so you can add a touch of color and personality to your brew wherever you are. I'm rocking a red one right now and I love it, but I am tempted by blue too. I only need one AeroPress, but we have three in the house, just in case three people want a cup of coffee at the same time, I guess. AeroPress is shockingly affordable, less than $50, And we've got an incredible offer for our listeners. Visit aeropress.com/overtired. That's AEROPRESS.com/overtired and use the promo code overtired to save 20% off your order. That's aeropress.com/overtired and be sure to use the code overtired at checkout to save 20%. It's time to ditch the drive-through, toss the French press, and say yes to better mornings fueled by better coffee. AeroPress ships to the USA and over 60 countries around the world, and we thank AeroPress for sponsoring our show.
Absolutely.
So how do you feel about ExpressVPN?
I mean, okay, genuinely, they are also a sponsor this week, and we appreciate them very much. I pay for ExpressVPN, and I don't get this for free from them for them providing a sponsorship for us. Although that would be nice. I actually pay for it. So when you think about like how you choose like your internet service provider and who to use, what's funny is in the United States anyway, you don't have a choice in most cases. It's just like this is your ISP. And if you want to get it from someone else, then you have to, pay for like a cellular carrier and get in on that, which may or may not be better than what your options are. But your options are limited. And so this allows, basically these companies kind of have the monopoly, and then they can determine not just what types of service they offer you, but because net neutrality law is being recalled, they can determine like how fast or how slow certain types of content you have access to is. And then in addition to that, this is also a thing. Again, net neutrality laws being repealed allowed this to happen. Like they can sell your data, like they can log and sell all the different sites that you visit and access, and that's allowed. Thanks Agit Pi for all of that. So it is in some ways a good idea to use a VPN like ExpressVPN to maybe hide your traffic from your ISP if you want. Like if you don't want like what you're doing being sold to other people, it's a VPN, so it's going to be encrypting network traffic and tunneling it through their secure server so that your ISP can't see any of your activity. And that's not a bad idea. It's also a good idea to use something like that if you're on a network that you don't have a lot of information about, because even though most web traffic these days is encrypted, in HTTPS, you don't necessarily want the people, at the Marriott to, again, be able to kind of like control what sorts of content you can and can't access. I've actually run into this before where I've been using like a perfectly valid thing, like a torrent client. And I've been at a hotel and they've been like, no, because this daemon is running on your machine, you're not even actively like running a torrent right now, but because you have this like background daemon, like we're not letting you access our network. Like that's a real thing that's happened to me. So you can use ExpressVPN, and then the main network can't see that what you're doing, and Bob's your uncle. So big fan of ExpressVPN. Also use it if you want to watch Canadian Netflix. It's good stuff. So I recommend it as a way to hide your online activity from the Marriott or your own ISP, or to access Netflix in another country. So stop handing your personal data to ISPs and other tech giants who mine your activity and sell off your information. Protect yourself with the VPN that I trust to keep me private online. You can visit expressvpn.com/overtired. That's expressvpn.com/overtired to get 3 extra months for free. expressvpn.com/overtired right now to learn more.
Yep. All right. Side note, like all of these VPN ads used to be about, well, for a while they were all about like co-location or whatever you want to, geolocation, which is valid. But it used, before that, it was all about security.
Right.
But you're right, like everything is SSL encrypted now.
Yep.
So it's kind of, that's a moot point.
Yeah.
So these new talking points are far better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've had to shift around that because it's like, yeah, everything is SSL encrypted. So it's not like the same thing like, oh, the Wi-Fi at the airport is going to snoop your data. No, it's not. It's just they might sell your data, right? Like, especially if you log in with an actual email address.
Right.
Which don't ever do. Just do none at none.com for the airport Wi-Fi. I promise you, because they don't make, because if you think about it, there's no way for you to click on an email link at the airport when they ask you for it. So they're just asking you for an email. So just none at none.com. I have no idea who owns that domain or anything. And I hope to God there's not a mailbox attached to it, because, I bet that there are millions and millions of people who every day are just like, this this is my random email.
I use example.com just
Yeah, it makes
because
sense.
like it's a force of habit because when you're writing for the web, if you want to
Yeah.
use a dummy URL, you can't just make shit up
Nope.
because then people can buy that domain and hijack
Absolutely.
any traffic that does anyone who doesn't realize it's a dummy URL and they click it and
Yep.
yeah. So I always use example.com because that's a protected
Yep.
I can register a
Correct.
domain.
Which is good. Yeah. The reason I do none is just because it's fewer characters to type. But you're
Sure.
right. When you're
Sure.
like writing things is better.
I get
But
that.
like when I'm like on my phone, I'm like, I don't have time to do the EX. Like I'm just no. I'm just,
So, can we talk a little bit about Google's vision of the web?
yes, please. Let's talk about it. How many times are we going to say AI in this conversation? And can we use Google?
Oh, it's
And can we use Gemini or whatever to tell us? Anyway, sorry.
um, so Google I/O happened recently, and one of their major focuses was AI search. AI in general, they demoed an improved version of AI from the last Google I/O round. Um, but like they're talking about basically revamping their search results page to provide answers directly on the page,
Mhm.
reducing the need to click into websites, which is okay. That's like for us old school web people, like getting Google traffic was a major source of
Yes.
traffic to our website, which leads to the ability to have advertisers, the ability to build a name,
Yep.
to build a reputation. Um, if they were to scrape my data and just give it directly to people without sending them to my site, that seems like a betrayal of the web, but also they run most of the
Well, I was
advertising.
gonna say this is like a big. I have to feel like this is like a big existential crisis internally for them because the
Yeah, it's a caveat for sure.
because okay, so I think when I think of like greatest acquisitions in history, like in computing history, right? Like obviously you have, Apple acquiring Next, right? Which
Mhm.
brought back Steve Jobs, which was most important and
Yep.
also gave them the underpinnings for, Mac OS 10, which then is the underpinnings
Mhm.
for everything they have. I also think of Apple's acquisition of um, PA Semi and getting into being able to manufacture their own chips, right? And the PA Semi acquisition, which was a fairly small acquisition, let them do that. But then I also think like for the web, like yeah, and then you also think like like Facebook buying Instagram, things like that. But one of the ones that has to be like in the top three, if not the top two, is Google buying DoubleClick. So when Google
Mhm.
bought DoubleClick, which was, the big ad serving thing, they were able to do exactly what you said. Like PageRank already existed and people were wanting to rank highly on Google, because people were using Google as a search engine to drive traffic to their sites and then they were able to sell ads on it. But then Google was like, well, we're going to buy DoubleClick and we're going to sell you the ads that are on your site. And we're going to do it in a programmatic way. And we're going to let you just insert a snippet of code and then we will show you contextual ads, on your site and make it very easy for people to
Mhm.
do that. And Google and Facebook are I think they're like 80 something percent of the ad market, right? Like all of that comes through them. And Google is by far the largest. So it is interesting. Like you said, it feels like a betrayal for people who are like, hey, we gave you access to our sites. We let you, search them and whatnot. And we played by your rules, even sometimes to our detriment about changing how our sites were coded and how information was presented so that you would rank us well, so that people would click through to us. Now you're going
Mhm.
to upend that and not show us, like not take people to our site, you're already kind of taking some of our data and putting it into data boxes and other things on the site. And there have been lawsuits about that. But now you're not even pretending that the goal is to send people to our sites. You're just flat out going to take
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
But, you know, the weird caveat is that by not sending people to our sites, that also means that people are not going to see the ads that you provide. So how is Google going to make money from search?
Right. Yeah. No, something's got to give there. Either they need to walk back their obvious plan for uh basically a bot
Mm-hmm.
that answers any and all questions instead of directing traffic around the web. They're either going to have to walk that back, or they're going to have to find a new revenue stream, because I have to imagine ad revenue is not an insignificant part of Google's
No, it is.
annual.
No, I mean, it's how they make money. Like it is. It
Yeah.
is how they make money. So you can't just get rid of that. And it is. And the hard thing is that people do increasingly use ChatGPT and other services like that to do web searching and to get answers to questions. And yes, that does have an impact on what websites people will visit. But the thing is that that's not real time. Like as much as Bing is trying to make it more real time, and as much as OpenAI is trying to add in stuff to make it more real time, like it's not quite there yet. So for like it, depending on what you're searching for, you might not get those results. You might still need to like have a traditional Google or I've been using Kagi. Actually, I've been paying for Kagi. I guess that's how it's pronounced.
I don't know what that
It's
is.
Kagi, and so
Oh, like the old.
yes,
There used to be a software licensing company
yes,
called
and
Kaji or
Kaji or Kagi. I have no idea how it's pronounced. I say Kagi, but please correct me if I'm wrong on this. Yeah, they bought the domain from them, but it's not affiliated with that in any way. The people who are behind this, I don't know how the guy got rich, but he got rich and then decided to start building the Orion web browser that I think we've talked about, which
Yeah,
is
we have.
WebKit based, but it supports web extensions, and so it's pretty cool. And but it turns out that Orion was always kind of created in some ways. It's kind of like a way to kind of show off the search engine. And so Kagi it costs money. It's like I'm on a family plan or duo plan with my friend Justin. So we pay like $14 a month with tax, or I guess annually. I guess we pay $151 a year, so $12.60 a month in tax. So I paid Justin $75 because he already had the plan, and we basically you get unlimited search from unlimited devices, and they bring stuff in from a number of different sources, some their own, some that they've worked with other people. So like I think Brave Search is one of their sources, and uh, Bing and DuckDuckGo and things like that, as well as some other things. And then they have some AI summarization tools that you can use with some of their things, and they have like I guess like a partnership with Wolfram Alpha. But the main thing I use it for is just honestly just straight up search, and I found the search to be really, really good. I was like not sure if I needed to pay for a search engine, and I got so frustrated with Google search that I started paying for Kagi or Kaji or however the hell you pronounce it.
Yeah. No, I guess it's a lesser concern, but the other thing about like actually linking people to a web page is you can get a pretty good sense as to how credible
1,000%.
a source of information is
Yes.
by visiting the web page.
Yes.
You do not get that opportunity when a bot is just telling you this is the answer.
Nope.
Then you have to do a search to verify your search.
Well, no, that's
result.
the thing, right? And what's frustrating is like even when you have and I what they were kind of showing off, it's like I was watching IO from a plane, so correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it didn't seem like they were showing a list of sources of where they were getting that information. Right. So, which means that I then have to like ask myself the question, like, how credible am I finding this? And where's this coming from? And like, can I find a way to get this information? Like, can I figure out like where they got this information so I can then vet it? You're right. Right. Like it would at least be better if they like would show you a source list. I don't know. Maybe they do. Again, I was on a plane when I was watching IO, so I have no idea.
I didn't notice. I mean, to me, that seems like minimum viable product would require a source list and links to the sources we scrape this information from, not just to be polite, but for exactly to avoid hallucinations, to allow people to. And that's the problem is most people won't. Most like if AI starts hallucinating or starts cannibalizing itself in any way, then most people are just going to accept what Google tells them,
Right.
and Google itself could become a source of
Oh
misinformation.
yeah, I'm sure that it
But
will be. I'm sure that it will be. No, and then it's just I don't know, like I understand what they're trying to do because they are seeing themselves getting disrupted out of this market and they need to disrupt themselves and I fully understand that. But like I don't know if the vision that they've shown off is like a good vision of
yeah, I kind of don't think it is, and for like obvious reasons that we've talked about now. But anyhow, how would you feel about a what's it called? A gratitude.
yeah, I love
I
gratitude.
can go first because I don't know if you're prepared or
I'm
not.
not prepared,
Uh,
but I need to look
but
through
you'll
stuff.
figure it out. I recently, okay, so let me start by saying Text Expander has been a longtime supporter of my work. And I have devoted a lot of time to building cool Text Expander snippets. But Text Expander is not really innovating anymore. And there is a new text expansion tool that is doing some very cool things called TextBlaze.
Ooh.
And I got a demo from a guy that actually used to work at Text Expander who now does sales for TextBlaze, and he gave me like a full tour. And if you go, I'll link the
It's
it's
blaze.today?
yeah, blaze.today. And if you go there, it looks like it's just a Chrome extension,
Yeah.
and you have to scroll all the way to the bottom to see the Mac OS app. And it syncs between platforms, so you can run the Chrome extension and the Mac OS app and the Windows app, and all of your snippets sync. And it does not have script snippets, which was one of the big
Mm,
things that I used Text Expander for.
right.
But what it does have is like this command palette, and some it has commands like URL load, and it will pull in a JSON response from an API, and then you can write a JavaScript function to parse and output, any part of that JSON response, which actually solves. I mean, half of the shell script snippets that I have in Text Expander are really just curling an API,
Right.
and those don't work on iOS, so they were kind of like they're outdated at this point. And having this built-in ability to pull in an external data source is brilliant. And you can do if then scripting, and they have all the fill-ins for like text fields and drop downs. And I'm having a lot of fun like kind of porting all my stuff over to it. The one thing that's killing me is in Text Expander, I always set it to expand after white space.
Right.
So I would have to type the snippet and then the space bar. And TextBlaze cannot do that. And you cannot include a space in a shortcut. So, I mean, I can get used to that. That's fine. But I naturally hit a space after I type a
Right.
shortcut. Like it's ingrained muscle memory. So I keep ending up with like I have one that just writes thanks Brett at the end of an email. Dash equals writes thanks. No, comma TX writes thanks Brett to sign off on emails. And I always hit the space, comma TX space. So then I get a space right before the T in thanks, Brett. And then I have to backspace, and that does not save me any time. I could have typed it faster at that point.
Right.
So that's going to take some getting used to. I'm getting there. I'm basically using, instead of comma comma, which is my kind of standard prefix for Text Expander, I'm using forward slash, so that my brain can start new muscle
No,
memory
that makes
on
sense.
these. But yeah, no, it's super cool, super fun to play with. They do have clients for various operating systems, all in beta right now. So for anyone who is a longtime Text Expander user who wants to try something new, it's worth checking out.
Yeah, I'm looking at the site now, and so and it looks like yeah, like it's in free. It's free forever. They've got like a free forever plan, And then they looks like they have like a pro plan, which is $3 a month, which that's about the same price as Text Expander, I think. Um, well, they
Eh,
have a free account, but then if you want to do certain things, like for instance, if you want to add in, and so the
command
free plan
packs.
might be good enough. What I can't tell from the free plan is if that like they have these looks like they have like these snippet packs or command packs or what.
Command packs that
Yeah,
are very much geared, like most of those only work in Chrome, and they're designed for automating like Gmail
right,
tasks,
right,
and there's AI writing built in. Like it'll write, you can basically use AI to generate a pleasant intro to an email to X customer and then save that as a snippet.
right.
And I haven't differentiated between what's available in my business plan
Yeah, that's what I can't
versus what's
tell.
available in the
Well,
free
well,
plan.
what I was thinking is because I didn't know this, like, is if any of the like some of the API stuff, like obviously, yeah, those command packs have been pre-created for things, but they also have like these connected snippets and then these dynamic
Mhm,
commands where like you can basically have like a a function that'll for things like a clipboard or click or whatnot, which might be
mhm.
useful and might be a way potentially
Oh,
to get
totally.
around the lack of Apple script support.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
that
So,
that I don't
oh,
know.
check this out. Check this out though. They have a discourse forum and they've built a like short code for embedding snippets, and it will actually display the snippet. Like it's cool. You can type out, like in curly brackets, you can type in your own commands, and then when you double click them they turn into tokenized bubbles, and then you can click on that bubble and you get like a whole info palette where you can edit all of its parameters and everything on the side. They built that into their discourse forum, so you get a JavaScript version of your snippet that you can preview. You can click a button to import it to your own text
Oh,
blaze,
that's cool.
and it looks exactly like it does in the app. It's super cool.
That's
I
very
love
cool.
it.
That's very cool. No, I'll check this out. I've been using what's the I'm trying to think who it's from. I think it might be from, but I because I pay for TextMate or not TextMate Text Expander. I would pay for TextMate if TextMate were still in development. But on some machines, like it just doesn't make sense for me to always like have Text Expander running. And I think I also was just like wanting to look at like what like alternatives might have been. So I've played with some alternatives that have been good and that it can you know uh take Text Expander inputs. The big thing that I run into, like you said, is the lack of white space thing. Like
Mhm.
that's a thing that for me can really kind of ruin things. But no, but this looks great. This looks really, really cool. A Typinator,
Yeah.
that's the app. That's the app.
Type in it. That's it.
Typinator.
That's
I've paid for that. And because I don't know, it's like a one-time thing versus a ongoing subscription. There's appeal in that depending on how much you use, your tools. I haven't had a problem paying for Text Expander, but at the same time, I don't know. I like to try things out. So Text Blaze, I'll give that a shot. That's cool.
I I want the code for that discourse plugin so that I can embed text blaze snippets on my blog and make them look as cool as they do in discourse.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're gonna open that up or
I mean, they
not, but
should. I mean, honestly, here's the thing, like the community of people who care about sharing expander snippets for any text expander service
can
is
that
it's like 10 people, right? Like the community of people who care about that
yeah.
is like really small and you're part of that. So if you are wanting people to adopt your tool, like I think that it would make
Mhm.
sense for them to make that sort of thing open.
Well, they do have some sharing features that I think they're going to improve on, much like Text Expander finally, after like 10 years, started offering like web-based snippet
Yep.
sharing. Long after I had built my own like
Yeah.
snippet group generator. But yeah,
No, that's great. Okay, so my pick is, and this kind of goes into a topic that we didn't talk about, but I can talk about a little bit here. So I bought a new Windows laptop. So um, I last bought a Windows laptop about 3 years ago, and I got the one from Framework, a company that I like a lot, who makes sustainable, like modular, upgradable laptops. And I really liked my Framework laptop, except it was an 11th gen Intel processor, and this was better than some of the Intel generations, but like not the best in terms of like battery life performance. Like certainly nothing close to like what Apple Silicon was giving you, right? And They do have an AMD variant available now that I looked at buying. The only reason I didn't was because it was a little expensive, considering I already like if I were buying a brand new laptop and I didn't already have like a framework, like it would have been a no-brainer. But since I already had a framework laptop, and I was like, it's the same screen, it's the same keyboard, it's just, a different processor and new RAM and stuff. Like, I didn't know if I wanted to go through the process of upgrading everything over, or if I wanted to, like, I don't know. I felt like I kind of maybe just wanted something a little bit different. So I bought, HP had a sale, and then American Express had $150 off offer. So it was like if you buy something for $1,000 or more, you got $150 off. And then HP had a sale, and so a laptop that Best Buy was selling for basically the equivalent that Best Buy, like their price, their MSRP was like $1,900. I wound up getting for I think like 1256 before tax and before the discount, and so it was like 13 something um after tax, and then so minus $150, so basically $1,200. I got a Core 7, I think that's what they call it, 155H. I don't know. Intel has a new naming scheme, with 32 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD. And it's a touchscreen, convertible. So like the X360 part of it is that, you can turn it all around. You can draw on it with like a tablet. Basically cheaper than an iPad Pro, but actually you can use it as a computer. Yes, that is a dig. And I have an iPad Pro, and I might be buying the new iPad Pro. I don't know yet. If I do, is just so I can give my iPad Pro to my mom, because it would be cheaper to give her that iPad Pro than like the amount of money that Apple will give me for buyback, like is less than what a 10th gen iPad would cost. It's dumb. Anyway, um, I'm rambling here, but I got a new Windows laptop, and so I've been playing with Windows a little bit more, because this laptop is faster and is more efficient than like my 3-year-old one, which I haven't fucked with in a long time. And I still have many complaints about Windows, especially with the setup process. And definitely, I'm looking forward to seeing. I think that there's going to be like a Qualcomm announcement in the next few weeks about. Apparently Windows on ARM is finally going to get good, and we'll see if that actually happens. But in the interim, I have been playing, on this new laptop that I've had for about a week and a half now, and I like a lot of things about it. I like the OLED screen, I like the refresh rate, but my gratitude pick, and this was my I'm very sorry, this is my long way of getting into this.
That's all right.
I'm long-winded because I'm tired. Is Arc, the web browser we were talking about, like
Oh
web
yeah,
browsers. Arc is now available for Windows.
nice. Yeah, I remember Brian Guffey was talking about that. They were totally sold on that browser a long time ago. But at that point, I think it was Mac
Yeah,
only.
and it's been Mac only, and so a couple weeks ago, Arc became available for Windows. And what's interesting about it, I believe, is that they built it using like Swift still for
Oh wow.
Windows. They released this a year ago. There was a video, says how we're building the Arc browser Windows app with Swift. So they're actually doing like Swift under the hood, which is pretty interesting. So instead, yeah. So this was from, I guess, their CEO. This was back in November of 2022, so 18 months ago. He says, "Arc is coming to Windows in 2023." Okay, you were off there, buddy. But although I think it was available in preview, but I didn't use the preview. With a twist, instead of using C#, Arc for Windows will be built using Swift. This is that browser company's biggest R&D yet. And then they have a whole video about like why we need to do those things. And I'm assuming it's just because it was just easier for them for whatever they're trying to do. I will actually want to go watch that full video, because I have questions
Yeah.
about why you would choose this when your
Well,
rendering
I
engine is
mean,
Chromium.
if you can have two code bases that more or less align, it would save you in the long run. It would save you a lot of development time.
Yeah.
So I have to assume it's so that they can port code back and forth. Although I've tried porting Swift code to like Linux machines and run into like the frameworks are different
Right.
and the APIs are different, and it still takes a lot of manipulation, especially for something as complex as like the Arc browser. So it is an interesting choice.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, totally. I mean, I understand, I think, kind of the decision there because, like you said, less maintenance. But then at the same time, I'm like, but your underlying like rendering engine is Chromium. Um, I don't know, like, wouldn't C just be your better option? Like, honestly,
I hate writing in C.
I know I understand that, but I'm saying if you're a browser company, if your company name literally is the browser company, which is their name, which is great. But if your company name is the browser company, wouldn't it make more sense to use something like C as your language on all of your platforms
From the
from the
beginning.
beginning
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
trying to scaffold Swift into working on Windows? That's all I'm saying. So I will drop the video in show notes because I want to I have questions about this, but at the same time, I don't care. In terms of like what decisions you made. Hey, maybe you just wanted to nerd snipe. Like maybe you just really, you know what I mean? Like I'm a big
Sure.
fan. Like whatever you want to do, guys. Anyway, I like the browser a lot. I actually like we were talking about AI stuff. I actually like how Arc gives you the option if you want to enable some AI tools for doing some summarization and some search stuff. They use Perplexity AI under the hood, which is a service that I now get for free, pro for free, because I bought that stupid Rabbit R1 device. And I got it, and it's dumb as hell, and the company is
Yep.
sketchy as fuck, and I'm not recommend.
But then they basically released a non-functional Android phone.
Yes. Well, yeah, which of course they did. Of course it was going to be based on AOSP. For me, the thing that I was actually more pissed about was the fact that like when you log into the services, they're like, oh, you need to use a computer. You can't use your phone or your browser or an iPad. I'm like, okay, that's weird. And then on my computer, I was like, this doesn't look Retina. And I realized that what you're doing is you're logging into a VM controlled by like tiny VNC or something. And so, but they're hiding it. And so they're making it look like you're logging into an official login thing. And the way I realized, A, was that stuff wasn't Retina. And B, I was like, why is my password manager not autofilling? And then I realized what it was happening. And they have like this fucking copy button where you can like paste something from your clipboard and then like send it to the password field. And I was like, okay, so this is sketch as fuck, right? Like I rather than using OAuth, which is what you should be doing, they're like, oh, well, we don't need to use any official APIs because we're just using Playwright scripts to, do our functions. I'm like, I get it. I get that, like, you might be violating Spotify's, partner terms or whatever. Although Spotify makes a very, like, they have a hardware program that this company could definitely has the money for and could definitely like, qualify for. Like, there's no reason for like maybe for like Uber or DoorDash, you would need to do what they're doing. But for Spotify, like there's a valid way you could have an integration set in. Regardless, anyway, Rabbit is sketch as fuck. But the reason I don't regret it is A, $200, who cares? B, I'm very privileged, blah, blah, blah. B, but let's be real. If you've listened to this podcast or any of my other podcasts, you know that I've wasted $200 on so many dumber things than this. Like this doesn't even rank. Like it's not even in the top 100. But I got a year Perplexity Pro for free, which is also $200. So I enjoy Perplexity Pro quite a bit. It's basically kind of like ChatGPT Plus, but you can also choose between Claude and the Mistral models and some of the other models too. So it's pretty cool. But they also have stuff with Arc for summarizing and asking some AI related stuff. So you don't have to use that stuff. You can turn all those things off. But I like the Arc browser a lot. I like how its tabs work. I like it's opinionated in what it's doing, and so. And then now there's a Windows version, and I enjoy it on Windows too. So anyway,
Yeah, I get the Arc newsletter, and I see all of their every time they have a new feature, I read about it. I have it installed. I'm pretty sold on Firefox right now, so I haven't been looking for a new browser. But they are doing some very cool things that I think ultimately may convince me to switch.
yeah, I mean, the thing that is for me, like that prevents me from Firefox, is the same thing that kind of prevents me from Safari, but it's Safari has it's more. It's that there are certain apps, and I've run into less of this, to be clear,
Oh,
but there's certain
yes.
apps that are designed for
Well,
Chromium.
like Riverside here right
Right.
now, anything that's
Yes.
recording video, anything pretty much that uses video
Mhm.
is going to prefer Chrome or a Chromium browser. So that makes perfect sense. And honestly, I have to load up Chrome to record our podcast, so I'm not purely a Firefox guy.
Right, right.
But Firefox Developer Edition, I can't remember what they call it, Web Developer Edition or whatever, with the blue Firefox logo. The inspector palette in that is crazy cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I actually recently, it's funny, yeah, I like the Firefox Developer Edition, and then, they have a VS Code plugin too,
Yeah.
which is really
Oh yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Because that's actually one of my things that, like, I really liked about Edge when it first came out. Like, because the Edge dev tools are really good, and I still stand by that. Like,
Mm.
I prefer the Edge dev tools to the Chrome dev tools. They are actually fairly significantly different, and I like that. Like, I can use those in VS Code. But yeah, the Firefox ones are really good now too, and they have
Yeah.
a VS Code extension. So yeah, big fan of that.
All right. So next time we're going to talk about all of my recent keyboard purchases
Yes.
and how I'm building keyboards from scratch now because I've gone down a rabbit hole and it's costing me a lot of money. And someone told me, at least you didn't go down an espresso rabbit hole because that gets way more expensive. But I'm buying keycaps for like $30 a piece. So it's gonna add
No,
up.
it is. No, that's so funny. So like $30 per key.
You just for
Oh, just for
specialties like
artisans. Okay.
my resin
Yeah, yeah,
point
yeah, yeah,
keys.
yeah, yeah. Just for your artisans. Okay.
I've tried like a dozen different keys, different resin keys, and finally found one that works well with backlighting and that I really like. So now I have to replace all of the tab, caps lock, shift, control, so that they're
Of
uniform
course.
and my keyboard looks right, and my whole bottom row, like function, control, option, command, is going to be these glowing yellow manta keys. They're like amber colored. It's going to be a cool keyboard, this ultimate hacking keyboard. But then I bought more that we'll talk
Yeah, we'll
about
talk more.
next
I want
time.
to hear about it. Yeah, I want to hear about like what type of boards are you doing, and like because I went down this rabbit hole, and I didn't like do the full soldering thing because I was like I don't want to solder that much.
Sure.
Um, but I did that like a couple years ago, and I've definitely spent my fair amount of money like on keycaps and shit. But yeah, I'm very interested in hearing. And I still watch a lot of the keycap like we're not keycap but like keyboard YouTube content.
I thought I won't go into depth, but I thought I knew what switches I wanted for this one I'm building, this Sophie that I'm building. And then when I got into going to purchase them, I realized there were like a dozen that I had never even
Yeah,
heard of,
yeah.
new ones from like Gatoron. And so I ordered a 100 switch
Nice.
tester that comes with like double shot keycaps and everything. So you can really test how things are going to
That's
sound.
good.
So I'm waiting until I get that before I decide how to finish this keyboard. But
Yeah,
anyhow,
I would definitely want to talk to you about that next time, and I want to link to what keycap or what switch tester you got because I have like this is where I kind of run into things because I kind of know like what switches I know I like, and I kind of stick with them, and then new ones come out, and I'm like, but how do I even test this?
yeah.
So, and how do I like, yeah, it'd be nice if somebody would just maybe this is what you got if somebody was just like, hey, is a tester that's pre-installed with what we think are like the best switches. Go nuts.
Well, you should be able to order like going into it, you want clicky, or you want silent,
Right.
or you want linear. Like those are like some
Yes.
basic. So you should be able to order a switch tester that's just clicky or just silent, and just test out, the clickiest of clicky keys. That would save me some time. I wouldn't have needed 100 switch tester if I could have narrowed
Exactly.
it down.
Yeah, no,
But
that would be nice. And the thing is too, I'm surprised that like that hasn't been a thing because like in the hobby as it's known, because like it takes time to get these things and it would be better if like you did just sell like a clicky switch tester or a
yeah.
silent one and whatnot because then like you'd be much more like this could be like a DIY thing that one of the companies like put together, because then like if you have them, then great. Guess where you're going to go? You're going to go back to that same place that you bought your switch tester from and buy switches from them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also they should have different levels of lube on the switches that you can test before you go and lube 50 some switches, because someone told you you should lube your switches.
because some are
That
pre-lubed.
feels like a lot of work to
It
me.
is a lot of work.
Some are pre-lubed, and you can get them lightly lubed or heavily lubed, and this feels dirty all of a sudden. I'm sorry. Anyhow, we'll wait
for Jeff.
to
Yeah,
come
I
back,
wouldn't. Yeah,
and then
'cause I'm sure he'll have questions too. But no, I look forward to going down the keyboard rabbit hole with you.
All right. Well, Christina, you got a big week
You.
ahead. Get some sleep.
Thank you, Brett. You too. Get some sleep.
The system is going down now.